she wanted me to do everything manually. Like when somebody bought the program, I send them the welcome email, make sure they get the
Oh,
workbook, add them to a spreadsheet. And I was like, there's got to be another way to do this. And I learned all about automation and I automated that whole program for her. And then I was like, yeah, I'm good at this. And a lot of people need help with this kind of thing. So that kind of just snowballed.
thank you for joining the Free Time Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Robert Gaines. Our guest is business tech expert and business consultant, Cara Laban. Her direct approach and community pricing set her apart from others in her field. You'll receive great tips for new and struggling entrepreneurs. Here's Cara. Thank you for joining us. Where are you joining us from this morning?
From Brooklyn, New York.
Brooklyn, New York. What's your favorite pizzeria up there? Are you a pizza person?
Of course, I'm a pizza person. How can you not be? Do I have a favorite pizza place? Actually, two of my favorite pizza places are right by Penn Station, which is kind of, if you ask other New Yorkers, they'd not like that answer.
Wow. So it's
Yeah.
just it's more convenient just to get it there, or you think it's higher quality?
I think because I used to commute in from Long Island, I used to get pizza there a lot, and I've had pizza other places, and they just didn't compare to those 2.
And you've got two websites. So can you
I
walk
do.
us through the identities behind those two websites?
Yeah. So one is the Techie Witch, and I've been doing that for about 4 years now. And that is helping small businesses, a lot of coaches and service providers with their tech and systems. So
Mhm.
just making things real streamlined and easy and as efficient as possible. And then my other business is Decide with Cara, and that's more life strategy. You could
Mhm.
also find it under lifedominatrix.com. So that's it's also just about being straightforward and efficiency, but more towards your life and your brain, and just making things happen in a really action-based way.
I like that. I think there's what's interesting to me, and I was thinking about this yesterday in preparation for this episode because I was looking at your socials, I was kind of looking at the messaging and absorbing it, and it's interesting when you live long enough, you start to see trends come back, and I don't want to get canceled, but but what I was in the army, so when we did something wrong, it wasn't always the problem was it wasn't always explained to us what we were doing wrong. But we immediately knew there was a problem because somebody was standing there screaming. And there's a time and a place for that. And of course, coming out of the military, I brought some of that with me where I was like, hey, put that down. If you don't, or if you come in late one more time tomorrow, you're fired. So I kind of came from that world. And then we've gone through this phase of softer, gentler, where I I can confirm that sometimes the people that are on my team, I'm not in a management position anymore. I'm on the floor, so to speak, and working with other people. But all of us kind of agree that we don't really know what's going on because the way they deliver the information is so soft. Sometimes you just need to say, Tony, if you come in late one more time, you're fired, and we're not allowed to say that anymore. And I see this trend. So you might be at the perfect place at the perfect time because I do see a sea change, both from a corporate and a personal standpoint, where people are like, just tell me. Are you seeing that where people are hungry for that directness?
Yeah, so the people who come to me, my clients are I originally started promoting my service as let me tell you what to do. But I realized it's not so much let me tell you what to do. It's let me help you figure out what you want to do and I'll help you figure out how to get there because you know, they're getting so much feedback being like, "You could be whatever you wanna be, and you could do whatever you wanna do," and it's too much, and the ideas are too big, and you can't execute on big ideas.
That's right. You can't sell to every so people the not to promote my book, but the book that I wrote was just about idea creation. And when I ask people what their idea, so I get approached sometimes by inventors and different things, and I'm like, well, who's your demographic? And of course, that always unfortunately it throws a lot of people off. And they were like, well, I want to sell to everybody. Okay, do you have $10 million for marketing? And they're like, what? I said, yeah, if you want to cast a net, the bigger the net, the more expensive the marketing. if you've got a product for single fathers who have twin girls, that's a very it's a highly specific market, or you, ex-military females from 35 to 45. Now there you go. Now that you can do an ad spend and be competitive. So that's what you're seeing too. People are just trying to cast this massive net and not even really kind of knowing where to start.
Yeah. Or they're just, I don't wanna say dreaming too big because I don't think you could dream too big,
Mhm.
but it's having big ideas and not knowing where to start, or just having so many ideas and it's all just, mishmashed in your brain and just not knowing what to do next and just getting stuck and just getting in a functional freeze.
So are you catching more people at the beginning of their entrepreneurial business journey, or are you or more kind of mid-career entrepreneurs? Are you seeing any trends there?
Yeah, so with my Techie Witch, I have been with a lot of new people who are just
Mhm,
starting out or they've started, but just kind of they just started, you know what I mean? Like
mhm.
they don't have any systems in place, they don't have any tech set up. So in that business, I get a lot of that. And then in my newer life strategy business, I'm not just with entrepreneurs. So I'm getting people mid-career looking for career changes
Mhm.
or just feeling stuck, or people who are looking to pivot because they've been doing something for a while, if they're an entrepreneur and looking to start something new.
Well, that's excellent that you're at least giving the new people a shot, because there are a lot of people that I've talked to, both guests on the show and people in a professional respect, where they won't deal with people just starting out. One, because they're a little bit more frustrating to work with because they don't know what they want. And number two, budget is always a constraint. And I don't want to throw cold water on anybody's dreams, but I'll tell you, everything I ever got involved in was at least 4 times harder than we anticipated and 4 times more expensive. Not double, but 4 times as much. And
Yeah.
this didn't come out of my mouth, but I agree with it. One person said that most of the things we do from a business standpoint, from an entrepreneurship, particularly launches, if we had known going in that it was going to take that, we probably would have done something else. So, you want to do as much pre-launch work as possible. And
Definitely.
now you have a because one and another reason why people don't work with people just starting out, because they're the most budget constrained. But I think you've
Mhm.
figured out a way maybe around that. Talk us through the pricing strategy.
Yeah, so on my I actually have this model in both of my businesses. I
Oh
have
wow.
shorter strategy calls
Mhm.
um, because I believe access to one-on-one should be available to anybody regardless of their budget. So I do community-based pricing, which means you pay what you can. And if you could pay more, you're supporting the people who could pay less. And I get to keep my work sustainable because if you just charge too little, you're going to burn out. And some people have more and want to pay it forward. So I let them do that.
How do you deal with that if you're really booked up and
Hmm.
someone puts in a pretty low amount? I mean, are you still gonna get them on the schedule, or do you shut that program down when
Hmm.
you're real big? How does that work? Because I'm sure there has to be some type of management program behind that.
Yeah. So I actually let them pay after the call. So they're paying based on value as well as
Wow.
what they can afford so they can assess afterwards. And I also want to give everybody the same treatment, regardless of how much they're going to pay me. So I let them pay after. But if I am getting booked out, I just offer less of those calls per month. So I just close my schedule to those types of calls when I don't have time.
That makes sense. And I don't want to. This is a very poor metaphor, so,
Mhm.
but I'm going to say it anyway in the spirit of time. If you have a food bank probably can't give everybody 8 bags of food. They can give a lot of people 2 bags of food, but if they start giving away 8 bags, they're going to be out of food before the lunchtime crowd comes in. Would that be somewhat of a fair comparison?
Yeah. Yeah. So with this community-based pricing, they're 30-minute calls, like I said. And
Mhm.
because I also offer long-term packages to my clients, I limit those 30-minute community-based calls to one call per month per person so that they can't come and, book one every day and pay me $5.
Is there a
So yeah.
suggested price? What do you
Yeah.
put? What and
Yeah,
what
so
is Go ahead.
I do a range
Mhm.
of, 3 different places. So if you're struggling, I recommend between 25 and $50. If you're doing alright, it's between 50 and 100, and if you're doing pretty well, then 1 to 200 plus, whatever you're happy to give.
When people provided you more than what you were asking,
Mhm.
what do you think what was happening on those calls different from the ones that I mean, o obviously beyond just customer satisfaction, what do you think you're unlocking when people become very generous after the session?
I think, a lot of people have said this, that when they get off the call, they feel a lot lighter and a lot less anxious. So I think that is extremely valuable to people that they didn't even know that a 30-minute call could make them feel so much more at ease.
So what are the 2 things that that they're really seeking despite what they're saying when they come to you?
Think they're looking for people to simplify what's going on because a lot of people are just way overcomplicating everything in their life, like absolutely everything in their life. So they're looking for somebody to simplify it for them and to point out what they really want. Because I think a lot of people think they know what they want, or they think they should do what they should do. They know what they should do, but not what they want to do.
Tell us more about
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
tech. How did you get started with that? Because that's been going on for a lot longer than the current new business.
Yeah, that's actually a little bit of a long-winded story, but the short version is I've always had a kind of a tech mind. I actually went
Mhm.
to school for engineering initially.
Oh,
I
wow.
realized that wasn't for me, and then I eventually started traveling, and I was waitressing at the time because, again, long-winded. After the engineering, I realized I wanted to act, and I was in New York anyway. But when you act, you are a waitress. That's just kind of what happens. And I decided to move to Australia where I was waitressing, and then I realized I actually love traveling. So I went to Asia and I was teaching English online and I hated that. So it's not for me. And then COVID happened and I was back in the States and I couldn't waitress at the time. So I needed to figure something else out to do. And I knew I wanted to keep traveling after COVID. So I needed to be something online that I could do from anywhere. And I took this course on becoming a virtual assistant. And I kind of started out as like marketing, general graphic design, virtual assistant. And I came on with this one client who was launching a program. And I think it was her second iteration of that program at the time, and she wanted me to do everything manually. Like when somebody bought the program, I send them the welcome email, make sure they get the
Oh,
workbook, add them to a spreadsheet. And I was like, there's got to be another way to do this. And I learned all about automation and I automated that whole program for her. And then I was like, yeah, I'm good at this. And a lot of people need help with this kind of thing. So that kind of just snowballed.
are you seeing that too where people and I hate to use an old phrase, but some people do have to hit rock bottom before they bounce up and start making the tough choices. Do you see that with entrepreneurs as well?
Absolutely. I think a lot of people, it takes them getting fired from their corporate
Ooh,
job
yeah.
to even realize that maybe they don't want to work in corporate again, or just completely burning out. And not to say entrepreneurship is easier than corporate because there's a lot of things that go
Mhm.
along with it. But I was actually talking to my friend the other day who was recently let go, and I mentioned, maybe starting her own business and I could help her with it. And she's like, I think I'm ADHD and I don't think I could do it. And I said, almost all of my friends in this community are ADHD. It's perfect for divergent people of all sorts because we set up our
Yes.
business exactly the way we want it. And I do think sometimes it takes people to not know where they want to go and then need the direction and help of somebody else to tell them where to go.
That's right. I think
Yeah.
and I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that have ADHD. There's, one of the people that I follow on, social media, and, there's a lot of people that we've all had heroes, so to speak, and then, they go on and then they start to not be as respectable. Maybe they align with another person and they start going for the easy money. I've seen a lot of gurus over the years that had a really good messaging, and then it's like, they get tempted by the money and corrupt it or something. I don't know what happens. But one person, that was when I actually read his book, that was part of why all of this launched. The mastermind group, this podcast was it's funny I mentioned is Dan Martell, Buy Your Time Back, because and he's very ADHD, and when you see his videos, you know, he's all over the place, but how he dealt with it is he built in systems. And when I wrote my book, I
Mhm.
had to kind of create a recipe for myself. You're going to write from, 7 to 8 every morning. You're going to sit down. So and I don't have ADHD. I am on the spectrum, but if you systematize things, which is exactly what you did for your clients, you automated, you
Mhm.
created this. And I think people that are neurodivergent, if structure is provided, either they develop it themselves or they get an expert like you to develop this system. If they follow the system, I think it's a lot easier. It's just like books. Books are also, prescriptions for problems. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Definitely. Yeah, I was gonna say that sometimes the system doesn't need to be as rigid as people think it is. So I have systems for myself to do quite literally anything, going grocery shopping, doing my laundry. And I have PMDD. So half the month, I'm a totally different person than I am the other half the month. And the systems I have in place allow me to get things done day to day, but it's not going to look the same every day. It's not going to look the same every week. But when you figure out what you need to do and the steps you need to take, it becomes so much easier when your brain just feels like mush.
That's right. Well, talk us through PMDD for people that don't know, because that doesn't get brought up as often.
Yeah, so PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder, and it's similar to PMS, but it comes with some more severe symptoms, more severe depression, anxiety. A lot of times people have a really hard time getting out of bed and just functioning at all as a person. And I've been struggling with it since I hit puberty. It is genetic and it also comes along with ADHD as well. So a lot of people who are ADHD also have PMDD. Um, so it affects people for different amounts of time and also different severities. And it's really important, I think, to have systems in place for yourself. Like, I know I'm going to be a different person for 2 weeks of the month. And if that means, like, I know I'm not going to be able to do my laundry this week, but that means as soon as I come out of it, I'm doing my laundry. Or before it hits, I'm doing my laundry, even if it's not ready yet. You know what I mean? It's just preparing for yourself and making accommodations, which is one of my big things, which is make accommodations, not excuses. And if you have PMDD or ADHD or autism or anything that makes you function a little differently than other people, I think it's important to have accommodations in place for yourself.
That makes a lot of sense. Is there any I've seen people go on hormone replacement therapy, both men and
Mhm.
women. I don't think I'm sure there are negative situations, but all of the people that I know that have gone on HRT, they well, I have one friend that was depressed. I mean, he was one of the most depressed people I've ever met in my life. And he went to therapy. He was doing all of these different things. And then he went and had his blood checked. And they said, you have the testosterone of a 90-year-old man. And they gave him, I think they gave him the pellet or they gave him the shot or something. And well, it was a few days later. It was like, I didn't know this guy. He was, hey, have you had your coffee yet? Like he was
Yeah.
like up. I was like, who
There's
is
a
this
been
guy?
I don't want to get it wrong. I think it's called DHEA, which is a supplement that you take and it turns into testosterone in your body,
Oh,
which
okay.
I actually went on as well. I had no testosterone, and I think a lot of people don't realize that women aren't supposed
Oh,
to have
that's right. That's
testosterone
right. That's right.
in their
Yeah.
body. So I had also had my blood tested. I had no, they're like your levels are zero, no testosterone, which
Wow.
causes a few issues in women. So I went on DHEA. I now have an IUD, so which means I don't get my period at all, which really helps. So my
Yes, yes.
PMDD is not nearly as severe as it once was, but it still like comes and goes. But I recommend anyone with PMDD to get an IUD or any birth control method that will stop them from getting their period because just not having the cycle will reduce the cycle.
Do you have things that you watch out for where you feel like, okay, I'm kind of getting off track a little bit?
I generally know it's coming because I start getting bloated and just insatiably hungry. Like I'm just so
Oh,
hungry. Um, so I know it's coming and I could prepare for it. And I think you should allow yourself treats. So if you're craving the bad food or whatever, don't stop yourself from eating it, but just make sure it's not all that you're eating. And I eat mostly plant-based, so
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
I'm very mindful about what I put in my body and eating all sorts of colors, and I eat a lot of vegetables, and that's just kind of how I eat. So I don't worry too much about the junk food aspect of it because I'm very capable of just, allowing myself a couple of treats and then moving moving away from it. But if I need to, I need to. I've seen a nutritionist actually say, um, if you want an Oreo, eat the Oreo because if you're going to be like, well, let me just have a rice cake with peanut butter instead, you're still going to want the Oreo after you eat the rice cake and peanut butter. And then you're going to be like, okay, I didn't want that. So let me have like a protein yogurt and that will satiate it. It's not going to satiate. You want the Oreo. And now you're going to still eat the Oreo. You're probably going to eat more than the one or two Oreos you would have eaten if you just wanted to satiate that. And now how many calories did you actually consume because you were trying to not eat the calories of the Oreo? So that's why I do think it's just important to just let yourself have the treat sometimes and just say, I'll be good with one or two. Put it back, walk away. Don't
Yeah.
take it with you. Like don't take the sleeve of Oreos with you to your bed. Just take two.
For the record, I've never only eaten 2 Oreos in my life. So one thing I wanted to ask you, and it kind of goes back to that community pricing you were talking about. There's an ongoing debate between me and another business owner. We're just trying to mutually solve this issue. So um, we're struggling with the concept of low ticket and high ticket services, which just, low ticket is something, but you're going to sell something for $30. A high ticket might be 1,500, might be 15,000. And the prevailing wisdom, if you read enough, community experts and books and so forth, they really steer you away from low ticket. And I resisted that. I was very vocal, like, I think low ticket is fine. You need volume, you need more people. It's like Walmart. They don't make a lot of money off each individual item, but they need to have a big building, they need to have a lot of inventory, and they need a lot of people going in and out. Whereas Bloomingdale's or Prada, they sell one handbag. They've paid it. They paid the light bill for the month, presumably. Uh,
Mhm,
but I think I'm now sliding on. I'm becoming part of the high ticket camp because of the cost to run everything.
mhm.
And I understand you can offer both, but with these two businesses that you have, what's been your discovery and approach about that? Because obviously with the community, you technically have a low ticket, but the high ticket will help sustain you for a very long time.
Yeah, definitely. Low ticket is great for getting people into your
Mm.
community and then you upsell to the high ticket. So the community-based model is to be accessible because I just highly believe in being affordable and letting people access one-on-one time, even if they don't have the funds to do that. But then eventually I'd like to focus on high ticket, on, getting speaking gigs, working in corporations where I don't feel so bad charging so much money. They have the money to spend it. But you're right that low ticket depends on volume. So you're gonna always have to be running ads. You have to have an audience to run low ticket. One of my newest clients who came on a few months ago wants to run a membership, and I was like, "Do you have an audience?" And she said, "No." And I said, "Then absolutely do not run a membership. It's so much work to run a membership, and if you only have 5 people in there, then why you have to do the same amount of work no matter how many
You
people are in
still
there."
have to produce all that content.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
yes, indeed.
I
And
do know a
mhm.
couple of business owners who, make a lot of money from, like, their whole thing is low ticket, but they have a huge audience and they have a huge community and they sell, like, Canva templates and, like, that's their thing.
Yeah. If you were a real estate agent before and you have a 5,000 person mailing list, and that's something that's coming up in a lot of these episodes.
Mhm,
Mailing lists. If people have, people say, I need likes and views, and yeah, yeah, yeah. But if you want to sell something, it's email is still king. And we had a recent episode where we went in a little bit deeper because I had somebody on that was an expert in constant contact. And that episode is airing this coming Wednesday. So people can look out for that. And he really provided a lot of wisdom about that. If you had I would rather somebody have a, and you can push back if you disagree. I would rather somebody have a mediocre, I used to not think this way, but have a mediocre product and 5,000 people on a mailing list than the greatest product in the world and they don't know anybody. True or false? Set me straight.
Thought about it in exactly those terms. But yeah, if you have people who trust you and listen to you and 5,000 people are sticking around, it really doesn't matter what you're selling. I don't think. If they like you, they're going to buy what you're selling.
Does McDonald's have the best hamburger? Absolutely not.
No.
But their marketing is insane, you know. So,
Yeah.
um,
Marketing is important for no matter no matter what your business is. It's one of the most important parts.
where are you seeing the most traction? Where you're either for your both for your own business and for your clients, where, and I know it varies based on the models, but just in generalities, where are you seeing? Because a lot of people with the recent changes in algorithms and things like that, I've
Mhm.
seen a lot of people online, particularly post pandemic. You know, I used to only pay 1,000 a month and I would get 200 clients, and now I'm not even I'm not getting a single email. So people are really struggling in this new whatever's going on.
Yeah, I think things are changing, so it's hard to say where we're going to be headed in the next couple of months into the next year.
Mhm.
Um, but I think it's funny. I actually get the most traction on Facebook and just networking in groups, and but it's going to highly depend on your demographic and who you're looking for. Um, I'm looking for people like 30s plus, and with my tech clients, it's a lot of late 30s to early 70s. Like, it's like
Oh
people
wow.
who struggle with tech and need help with that. So they're on Facebook, they're hanging out there.
Now, since you're serving up what we call in the 12-step program that I won't mention that I used to get sober, we have a phrase in there called baseball bat therapy. And that's when we tell someone exactly, you know, potentially what they need. And in that program, which I'm not allowed to say that I'm a member of, we talk about practicing rigorous honesty. And I love that because
Mhm.
it really set me free. You know, when I'm amongst members of the program, we tend to be very, very direct and we give each other baseball bat therapy where we just tell them the thing.
Mhm.
Since that's also your approach, have you run into situations where somebody thought that that's what they wanted, and then when you delivered it, it was a little maybe too much?
In my personal life, yes. Um, in my business, not yet, but
Wow.
I
Okay.
also in my onboarding, like in my questions, I do ask how direct they would like me to be. And if they tell me they'd like to be me to be a little more supportive, like they want to hear what I have to say, but they would like me to be more supportive, I honor that. So um, I do take their feelings into account a little bit. And also the people who are coming to me want to be told what's happening. They're not it's not just I'm not just telling them because they're my friend and I think they need to hear it. You know what I mean?
Who's the ideal demographic for each of your websites? Give me your, I guess the fashionable thing to say these days are your your customer
Your
avatar, which
customer
is the,
avatar.
yeah, that's when did that come
Yes.
up? 2 years ago or something? I've never heard of that before. Now everybody talks about it.
Yeah. So on both of them, I prefer to work with women and queer people, but it's not uh it's not a blanket statement. That's just generally who I find myself around generally. Um, with the Techie Witch, it's um, business owners who are either just starting out or newer to running their own business, and usually between the ages of 30 again to any age that you're able to run your own business. And I applaud you if you're up there and just starting out. Um, and then for Life Dominatrix, my life strategy work is again probably people in their 30s and 40s who are looking for somebody who will tell them how it is, are going to give them their unbiased opinion, and they can be entrepreneurs. Doesn't need to be just people who are struggling right now and need some clarity in their life.
That sounds like an excellent group to go after. You also probably
Yeah.
see what I call the pivot. I see and you mentioned it earlier, when people get fired, when people get divorced, um, when a previous business fails, and I see people at a certain age, sometimes that's when they become an author. And of course, too, as an author, if they're going to write an autobiography, they have to have lived a life. So you probably see these pivot points too, people coming to you right after these major life changes. That's probably a thread through your customers as well.
Yeah, like I said, a lot of people are leaving corporate who are starting their own business, or they've been a stay-at-home mom and their kids are growing up, or they're getting over chronic illness and they're finally ready to tell their story and help other people. It's definitely their point. They're not always the same for each person, though.
How can, and of course, we've all heard about the rents in New York and LA and different areas. If someone's going to make that pivot, and let's say they're still working, I mean, the cost of just surviving in these high rent areas are tough enough. But what's your usually your recommendation? Because a lot of people, if they're making a pivot, they want to monetize very, very quickly, which speed is expensive. That's more marketing. So what are you normally advising in those situations? Because people have to get up and running pretty fast.
Yeah, if people are still in their corporate job, I recommend staying in your job until you have some sort of stream of income. There's, of course, lots of grants out there that you could apply for to help you out. Um, if you are lucky enough to have family who's willing to support you and you're just like, I can't stay in my corporate job, um, that's an option, fundraising and such. I helped somebody yesterday who is starting a nonprofit, and she was really struggling about asking asking her husband and her family for money to start this, and didn't want to fundraise. But I'm like, it's a nonprofit, you could fundraise. She's like, for me? I'm like, it's not for you, it's for your nonprofit. And
That's true. Yeah.
yeah, just go through all of the methods that you could possibly have to get money, because you need it to survive. So don't write anything off. There's resources, and also don't write off taking like day jobs, retail, waitressing, whatever. Because if you're able to work 4 days a week or 3 days a week, and then you have the other days to focus on your business, I think that's probably the most productive thing than getting into debt. But loans, you can leverage debt, you can leverage loans. So if you know you're good about it, you could be good about that money and you have a real plan and you have proof of concept, go for it. If you don't, do not get yourself into debt.
For people just starting out to get that email list, which is so critical, are you suggesting that they run ads and a squeeze page and people put in their email? What's the typical thing that where you're seeing the most results?
For starting out, I wouldn't start with ads, just because it costs money. It costs a decent amount of
Mm,
money to run ads.
absolutely.
So you could grow your list pretty well, organically. So just getting active on social media, leveraging other people's email lists. So if you can network and make connections and get on their list, and you have some sort of freebie or you offer a workshop or something like that, and then you get people on your list. And another important thing to mention, I know you were talking about before, like socials are important. You don't own your social media list, so
That's
they could
right.
shut down your account at any time, and you'll never recover that audience. So your email list you do own, and that's just an important note to
Great
remember.
wisdom. Great wisdom. You don't own Facebook. Just a quick little thing. Facebook removed my access to Marketplace about 2 weeks ago. I just happened to notice it. I do have something up for sale that's been up for sale for a long time. And I just went to check on it just randomly 2 weeks ago. I don't have access to it. I don't know how long I haven't had access to it. I don't know why I don't have it. I've never got anything from Facebook. So I sent a thing to them. I went on AI and asked, how do I, try to restore access? I went through the form, filled it out, disputed it, no explanation. And then a few days later, I had restored access. No email, no nothing. I mean, that's frightening because I'm the least controversial, maybe privately I have maybe some controversial ideas, but I'm not that guy on social media. I'm pretty neutral. If you read the stuff, you can kind of tell that I don't agree with the current the way they do the economics, but politically, I really don't care. I don't think the solutions are picking this party or that party. It's economics. I mean, those are immutable laws. But anyway, so I'm not saying anything on there that's crazy. And for them to just zap my account with no, and imagine if you've got a business or your YouTube channel, we've all heard people that were relatively non-controversial YouTubers, they have 360 videos, 1,000 hours of video, and they wake up one day and their channel's gone and the content is
Yeah.
gone. And if they don't have a backup of that 10 trillion terabytes or whatever it is, it's just gone. So yeah, own it. And
Yeah.
the email list is the best thing to have a little piece of that ownership. Now, how can people find you? Let's get your websites, your URLs.
Yeah. So if you're looking for tech help or client experience and automation, you can find me at thetechiewitch.com, and that's techie with a Y, not an IE. A lot of people get that wrong. And then my other one is caralaban.com. If you can't spell that, decidewithcara.com will go to the same place, and that's Cara with a C.
Decide with Cara. That's good. And then also
Yeah.
too, you do say that you've got naturally, and you've got a big audience on Facebook. Do you mind if they reach out and connect to you there as well?
Yeah, sure. So you'll just find me with my name, Cara Laban,
And in the
and
wrap
you
up,
could
oh, I'm
find me
sorry, go
there.
ahead. In the wrap
No,
up, can you
you can find me there. Yeah. Sorry.
Perfect, perfect. I'm sorry. Tell us about the 30-minute call because I see that's a great thing that you offer. If you can,
Mhm.
for people that are on the fence, tell us why that's such a great option.
It's a great option because you really don't know how much you could get done in 30 minutes with a little bit of direction. So if your wheels are spinning, you just have like mishmash in your mind, you're feeling stuck by some big decision or something like that, having somebody repeat it back to you, ask pointed questions, and then you walk away with an actual action plan, um, with steps to take to move you in that direction could really spring you forward in a way that you're not going to get to on your own.
I like it. I like the sound of that. Thank you for coming in, Kara. I really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on the Free Time Mastermind podcast. I'm your host, Robert Gaines. To support the channel, please click like, comment, subscribe, and share this episode. The book Scintilla, The Ultimate Guide to Generating Business Ideas, Products, and Services, is now available on Amazon. It's available as an ebook, softcover, and hardcover. Please find the link to the Amazon page in the description, as well as other links relevant to this episode.